Hello everyone, my name is Alexis and I have a really lovely class planned for you today. You don't need any props, although you might want a block or a bolster. It's up to you. None are required, but if you want one, grab one. This is a Yin class, so we're going to begin in a wide-legged child's pose. So I'm not using any props, but if you want a blanket or a pillow underneath your chest while you're here, by all means grab one. We're going to be here for 4 minutes in most every pose we do today. And as you're in these Yin Yoga poses, I want you to pay attention to your edge. There's this idea in Yin Yoga that when we are in a pose, we're not trying to stretch the most intense stretch that we possibly can. We want to go to the edge of where we feel sensation and then stop. If you looked at it on a number scale, 1 being no sensation and 10 being the most sensation ever, you want to keep your stretches in the ballpark of somewhere between a 5 and a 7. Enough to feel something, for sure, but not enough to injure yourself or go too hard. The reason I picked Yin for this class is intentional. Like I said, the purpose of Yin is to find the middle way. You're not going so far as to hurt yourself, but you're also not holding back so much that you don't feel anything. You're finding the middle path. You are stretching in moderation. And this matches perfectly with the theme for today's class. This is one of the Yama, Bramacharya. Bramacharya or Bramacharya, depending, essentially means moderation, which is exactly what we're going to be doing throughout the entirety of this yoga class. Is in every pose, we're going to be finding our middle path, our stretch in moderation. The traditional translation of Bramacharya is moderation of the senses. And what this essentially means is so often in life, we are inundated by information via our senses. What we see, what we hear, what we smell, what we feel, and what we taste. And often, those senses can be overwhelming to the point where we have a monkey brain, or as I like to call it, a squirrel brain. We'll be walking along and see something, and like a dog finding a squirrel and wanting to chase it, our senses bring in different squirrels, if you will, that distract us away from maybe who we want to be, how we want to be. And this is a pretty big idea. So we're going to look at it today in terms of ourselves, in terms of looking at things in our life and looking at how well they serve us. So as you move through these yoga poses, keep paying attention to your breath. Keep paying attention to how you feel in a pose, because as you're in a pose for a long time, you might find that throughout the 4 minutes that we're in each pose, you might be able to rest in a pose or stretch in a pose a little deeper. So I want you to keep an awareness of your body as we move through every pose in this class. Take a couple more deep breaths in child's pose. And then walk your hands back to come up into a seated position. And the next pose that we're going to come into is Shoelace Pose. Now, if this is inaccessible to you, just come into a regular cross-legged position with one leg crossed in front, and we'll switch later. If you're coming into Shoelace with me, cross the right leg underneath you so the right foot is next to the left hip. The left leg will cross over top of the right leg so the knees stack. If you need a block or a pillow or a blanket in between your knees, do so. And I also want you to pay attention to how far away your feet are from your hips, from your legs. You want to make sure that they're about the same length apart on either side. You don't want one foot closer and the other foot farther away. You want to make sure they're fairly equidistant from your legs. Now you can stay seated up here, or you can fold forward. I love to put a block under my forehead once I've made it down there. And you might not go very far. But again, remember, we're going towards moderation. So don't go into your deepest shoelace stretch right away. If you're folding forward, just go until you feel sensation. And then maybe prop yourself up with your arms and breathe and allow your body to sink into this pose. One of the things I love the most about Bramacharya as a Yama is it encourages us to examine what is really important to us. What do we want to pay attention to? How do we want to spend our time? What things do we want to read or watch or listen to? Bramacharya is basically saying that those things that we interact with and intake influence us. I'm sure we've all eaten something that didn't disagree with us, and it was probably an unpleasant experience, and perhaps we don't really eat that thing anymore, or we are more cautious, or maybe we clean our produce better. That experience of having a negative reaction to something that we ingested can often change how we act in the future. And that is essentially what Bramacharya is. It is the mindful awareness of what we interact with, what our senses are bringing into us, and examining how we ingest those things, how we react to those things. Some things are good for us and some things are not. Another thing I love about Bramacharya is it does essentially mean moderation. One of my favorite quotes of all time is everything in moderation, including moderation. Everything in moderation was originally written by a Greek poet, Hesiod, if I'm pronouncing his name correct, and it was expanded on by Oscar Wilde, adding the everything in moderation, including moderation bit at the end. Because as you go through life, you will find that some things agree with you, agree with your body, agree with your mind, agree with your heart, more than other things. And sometimes we need to ingest things that maybe we don't necessarily like, but are good for us. Like cold medicine when you have a cold, or antibiotics when you have an infection. So as you're here through these poses, I want you to reflect. You can pick one thing in your life, or you can just listen to my prompts. But ask yourself, of the things that I am intaking in my life, the food I'm eating, the movement I'm doing or not doing, the TV shows and movies I watch, the books I read, the podcasts and music I listen to, what is the effect of these things on me? Is there an effect on my physical health? Sometimes we can have a visceral physical reaction to a hard or challenging conversation. Very often, anxiety and stress manifest in our physical bodies. How does my heart react or feel in regards to these things? Go ahead and we're just going to switch sides with our shoelace pose here. So gently come on out of it wherever you were and just windshield wiper the legs side to side and check in. How do your hips feel? Shoelace is a pretty intense pose, so check in with your body. And then we're going to switch to the other side. If you had your legs just crossed like regular, just switch the cross of the legs. If you were coming with me into shoelace, this time bring the left foot outside of the right hip and cross the right leg over on top so that the right knee lines up with the left. And again, double check your feet, make sure they're equidistant from your hips. And then sit up nice and tall and maybe fold forward. And you might, throughout the course of holding the pose, make your way further and deeper into the pose. It's all about finding your middle way, which might change. So as you're examining, how do these things that I'm intaking affect my body, my heart? How do I feel about something? Does a certain friend make me feel uncertain about myself or unsupported? Does watching a certain show give me nightmares or plague me with indecision or cause anxiety? As we are examining those things, what is our edge of moderation? Because of course, going right down the middle way doesn't always quite work. Sometimes you really need that piece of chocolate cake. And sometimes you really need to just eat salad for lunch. It can go both ways, and sometimes you might need both in a day. The goal of Bramacharya is not so much limiting yourself, but being aware of yourself, which is why, as with all things in yoga, this is a practice. This isn't something you will achieve. It is something that every day you will learn to pay a little bit more attention to yourself, a little bit more attention to, I ate this thing and didn't feel good afterwards, or I had this type of conversation with a friend and it didn't make me feel good about myself, or I watched this show and then I had a nightmare. And it's paying attention to those things and acknowledging that you can care for yourself from a place of wanting to serve yourself, treat yourself well. Because when we can do that for ourselves, it better enables us to empathize and understand and connect with others. So often when we take in things from outside sources, we can be influenced maybe in directions that we don't necessarily want to go. When we pause and come to stillness and check in with who we truly are, we might find that a desire or a dream or a goal isn't actually something that we want. It's just something we were told we wanted or society expected of us. Bramacharya shows us how to not let those desires and those goals control us in unhealthy ways. For example, losing weight is a very common goal with not bad motivations, but it can manifest in very unhealthy, dangerous ways. And it's being able to evaluate, why do I have this goal? Why do I want to achieve this goal or dream or desire? And being able to address it and achieve it and pursue it in a healthy way, in a sustainable way. I always like to say that humans aren't robots. We were not designed for 100% output 100% of the time. A very hard lesson for me to learn was that I needed rest. And that didn't make me a bad person. It didn't make me less than. It was essential to myself, to my productivity, and to my happiness as a human being. And I could still achieve my goals by resting. Go ahead and come up out of your shoelace pose, uncurl your legs wherever they were, and go ahead and do another little windshield wiper side to side. Like I said, shoelace is pretty intense, so we did that with a cold body, and I'm really proud of you for getting through it. It can be really intense. From here, go ahead and turn on your mat so your legs are extended out in front of you. And we're going to come into Joni Srishasana, one of my favorites. Bend the right knee and bring the right foot into the left thigh. The left foot can relax. This is a yin class after all. And just fold forward over that left leg. It doesn't matter, again, how far you go. You are chasing sensation rather than progress. So often we are chasing progress, checking things off lists, achieving goals, achieving dreams, and those are beautiful, good things. But very often, in the pursuit of those, we lean too heavily in one direction, too heavily in certain senses or certain things that we intake, that we don't allow ourselves a experience of humanity that is whole and multifaceted and complete. And that's what Bramacharya encourages us to do, to examine our lives, examine how we are living, what we are intaking, and examining how we can be more whole. The word yoga, of course, means to yoke, to bring together. When you yoke something, you are bringing two opposing forces together. We yoke cows or oxen together to plow fields. And oxen are their own creatures, their own autonomous creatures with their own minds. And yet we can bring them together and have them work in harmony, which is what yoga and the 8 limbs of yoga and the yamas and the niyamas allow us to do, is to understand the dualities and binaries that exist within each of us individually, bring them together so that we can live our existence from a holistic place, from a place that's beyond binaries. Now, as we move into the rest of this class, I'm going to talk less because I really want you to focus on this idea as you move through these yin postures. I want you to ask yourself, what is my middle way here? What is the edge of my moderation here? Am I going too far? Am I not challenging myself enough here? For the remainder of class, as you move through each of these poses, as we hold these different stretches, I will cue you to check in with yourself. Where am I at? How do I feel right now? Is the way I am doing this pose serving me, or is it causing me harm? Because, of course, to take it back to the very first Yama, ahimsa, which is do no harm. Ultimately, every Yama and Niyama comes back to that first Yama, do no harm. If in the process of pursuing the other Yama and Niyama, we do harm, then we have something to examine, we have something to check out and look into. Because first and foremost, ahimsa says we should do no harm. So how can you be in this pose? Examine where you are, if where you are in pose is serving you, and checking in that you aren't doing yourself any harm in the process. And come up out of Joni Srishasana on the right side. And we're just gonna switch sides. So give the knees a little wiggle if you need to, and then pull the left foot into the right thigh. And same thing here. Relax that right foot and fold forward. One thing I really like to do in forward folds, if my forehead can get there, is to put a block underneath my forehead. It can allow my whole body to relax a little bit more into a pose, which if you find that you can fold forward far enough, that's a beautiful addition and a really supportive addition to these poses. And I encourage you to do that if you have blocks at your disposal and that is within your range of motion. But again, as you're here, ask yourself, where am I at in this pose? What do I feel? What do I sense in my body? Is where I'm at serving me? Am I going too far? Could I go a little farther? Am I doing harm? Or am I honoring where I need to be? ahead and gently walk yourself up out of this Joni Srishasana. Straighten the legs, give the knees a little wiggle. And from here, we're going to come into a Yin forward fold, which is different from a regular forward fold. Relax your legs so your feet splay out to the side. And instead of reaching towards the feet like we usually do, you're going to lead with your forehead and curl yourself towards your legs. There is such a difference between an active forward fold and a Yin forward fold. In this Yin forward fold, the goal is not to stretch the backs of the legs like it usually is. The goal is to allow the spine to open up, to create more space in between each individual vertebra of the spine. So as you're here, keep your chin tucked into your chest. Relax through the shoulders and allow the shoulder blades almost as if they could waterfall off the sides of your upper back. Keep your legs super relaxed. It might help at any point if you get uncomfortable in your back or your hips to prop yourself up a little. Maybe roll up the back of your mat so you can prop your hips up or sit up on a block. But again, like we've been talking about with Bramacharya, check in. Is where I'm at in this pose serving me? A Yin forward fold is a hard pose. It is challenging. We don't usually do this with our bodies. It can feel odd. So if you feel pain, of course, back out. But if there's discomfort, examine it. Is this a good discomfort or a not good discomfort? And that will be different for everybody. What is the effect of this pose on my body right now? And then from there, examine, should I back off or can I go deeper? And of course, enjoy the pose. Bring your hands by your legs and use your hands to push yourself up to a straight spine. Very nice. From here, we're going to come to lying down. Bring the knees into the chest, give them a little hug. And from here, we're going to come into a twist. So pop your hips over to the right and lower your knees over to the left. Again, check in with yourself. This does not need to be the most intense twist ever. If you want to use blocks or pillows to prop your legs up so it's a little more comfortable and something you can hold for a number of minutes, do so. You can look wherever is comfortable and your arms can do whatever is comfortable. But again, check in with yourself. Where am I at? How is this pose serving me? And if it's not, is there something that I can change or adjust, like I just did in the video, to make this pose serve me better? And to be clear, it's not always about how is something serving us. Oftentimes, we want to examine just the effect of something. An effect can be neutral, but Bramacharya is more the practice of observing what those effects are than really passing judgment on them. Sometimes there will be effects that need to have some judgment passed on them, whether they're a good thing or a bad thing. But more than that, Bramacharya cultivates an understanding of ourselves that we will again revisit in the niyamas as well when we look at Svadhyaya next year. Wherever you are, whatever state you are in, continue to breathe. Bring your knees back to center, and we're just going to come to a twist on the other side. So lift your hips over to the left, let the knees fall to the right. And again, check in. How do I feel? Does this serve me? What is the effect of this pose on my body? What is the effect of all the poses so far been on my body? your knees back to center. Readjust your hips so they're in line with your shoulders. And from here, we're going to come into banana pose. So extend your legs long, walk your feet to the left, shimmy your shoulders to the left, and make sure that that right hip is anchored into the mat. I like to clasp my right wrist with my left hand, and I like to cross my right leg over my left. It is up to you. Decide what you need here and what feels good here and what you can hold for the next several minutes. Release your arms, uncross your legs if they were crossed, and bring yourself into banana on the other side, shimmying your feet over to the right, shimmying your shoulders over to the right, keeping that left hip nice and grounded. And then again, you can cross the left ankle over right, clasp the left wrist with the right hand, relax into the pose. Make sure you are where you need to be, and enjoy. everything back to center. And we'll finish this class with a really nice long Shavasana. Now, if you have props that you like to use in Shavasana, or you want to do a reclined butterfly for Shavasana, or keep your knees bent like I did in my Shavasana, you are welcome to. Find the Shavasana that will serve you best. Of course, there's no efforting in Shavasana. The goal of the pose is complete rest. So pick the things for your Shavasana that will serve you best in this pose. Wherever you are in your Shavasana, begin to make gentle movements, moving the wrists and the ankles, maybe doing a full body stretch, whatever feels good. And then bring yourself up to a seated position. Again, whatever is comfortable and whatever will serve you best. Take several breaths here. Inhale the arms down, around, up overhead. Pull the hands to heart center. And when you're ready, you can open your eyes. Thank you so much for joining me for this Bramacharya class. I hope you enjoyed it. Be sure to give it a thumbs up. Don't forget to subscribe. And until next time, I'll see you later. Have a lovely rest of your day. Bye for now.